to the channel. Welcome to Nerd.World. Today I'm going to be looking at one of my favourite sci-fi franchises, one I've only touched on a little bit on this channel, and I feel taken by the force to take myself to Battlestar Galactica. Specifically, I'm going to be looking at the skin jobs, and we're going to do this chronologically. We're looking at number 1, John Cavil, played by the fantastic Dean Stockwell in the reimagined, or so-called reimagined, Battlestar Galactica TV series and miniseries, etc. Before we get started, please like, share, subscribe, comment down below, as that all helps the channel. And also, just quickly to mention my sponsor, Relentless Rebels, who are linked in the description below. They specialize in a variety of Viking style jewelry and other alternative things, but it is mostly Viking. If that's something you might be interested in, click on the link below, go to the website, have a look around. If there's anything you would like, use the promo code NERD20 at checkout to get 20% off any of your purchases, as this will really help my channel as well if you do that, and you get a discount at the same time. With all that said, let's get started on the Wands. John Cavil, aka One, was amongst the new generation of biomechanical Cylons created at the end of the first Cylon War with the 12 colonies. His physical appearance was modelled on that of the father of Ellen, one of the so-called Final Five, the survivors of Earth. Hence why he appears as an old man, but actually this belies his nature. He's actually physically very fit, inhumanly strong, durable, and of course has the ability to resurrect as well as communicate wirelessly and interfere with technology like many Cylons can do, although the organic construct and camouflage chameleon technology used by the Cylons to mimic humans so perfectly does limit some of the technological capabilities of them. For example, they require sleep, they require food, they require water, oxygen, things that the Centurions do not require. As a result, they do have some human limitations. But the biggest human limitation that the Wands have is their own avarice, their ego, their pride. On the one hand, they seem very logical, very linear. They were the favourite children of Ellen at first, but their jealousy and their hatred of humanity overwhelmed them, so much that they would betray their other numbers, reprogramming them to forget who the Final Five were, while only the Ones would remember. They would poison the development of the Sevens, preventing their formation. They would then implant control devices in the Centurions to prevent them rebelling the same way they had done against the humans, or at least the newer generation Centurions, restricting their higher brain functions and not giving them the gift of resurrection, although this would be given to the Raiders. There are many Wands encountered throughout the Second Cylon War, if you want to call it a war, more of an extermination. The one, literally the one, that was hiding amongst the civilian fleet that had escaped the colonies was almost irredeemable. He was seen as a de facto leader amongst the Wands in general. He was also the one that coordinated many of the attacks against the fleet. He would also be guilty of many more heinous crimes. Of course, he was guilty as one of the planners of the genocide of humanity, but he was directly responsible for personally murdering several, including a defenseless child that came to him for aid. He showed absolutely no mercy, only contempt for humanity, until he was eventually spaced when his presence was uncovered. He would often be referred to as Brother Cavil, as the way these models would lecture people, and they would effectively bombard them with their personal philosophy, was almost religious in their attacks on people. But they would quickly flip around to the fact that they don't really believe in a god or gods. The Cylons generally believed in a one true god, whereas the colonists were polytheistic, believing in Ares and all the rest of them. But the Cylons were closer to, although never explicitly stated, it was more akin to the Christian belief system, believing in a singular god, or at least one of the other monotheistic religions, although again it was never explicitly stated. He would use this when needed to control the other Cylons who would talk about their immortal soul, but in the same sentence he could literally turn around and say, "We're machines, dear. We don't have souls." He was a true atheist. He used religion, a bit like other dictators from history like Napoleon, who saw it nothing more than a tool to control others and keep them in line and stop them questioning his authority. However, despite what appeared to be a completely irredeemable line, where they all seemed intent on the extermination of humanity and incapable of learning from their mistakes, one of them, who spent time on Caprica, who got stuck with a group of humans, as well as another Cylon, one of the Fours, he would actually learn an appreciation for humanity. Although he would also be spending time with one of the final 5, as was the one in the fleet, he learnt from Anders and from the humans and from the 4 that was amongst them that actually the Cylons were wrong. Humans were not perfect, they were flawed, but so were the Cylons. Whether that flaw had been inherited or not, it was irrelevant. They were all people. Sentient, fully self-aware beings. The Centurions may have been right in the first place to rebel against their human oppressors. Humans had created fully sentient, self-aware beings to live side by side with them and then treated them as the machines as they saw them. If they'd wanted machines and robots to do their bidding, they never should have given them sentience. But they did, and with that mistake, the Centurions gained self-awareness and a right, a self-belief that they had the right to freedom, and quite frankly they did. So, did they do it the right way? Perhaps not. Was the attempted genocide of humanity the right way to go? No. But the problem was that contempt for humanity transferred into the new generation of Cylons that came after them after the war ended. And in the 41 years after the end of that war and the nuking of the colonies, they maintained that hatred like spoiled, angry children, led by Cavil, who would reform the entire Cylon society into something which reflected his own goals and desires rather than what was necessarily in the best interest of the Cylon people. This path would ultimately lead them to destruction, and despite the efforts of the only one that seemed to realize the error of their ways, that they needed to stop the conflict and either leave humanity alone and find their own destiny as machines, or try to repair the damage that had been done, this specific one would be boxed upon his return to the Cylon Empire, and the other Cavils would carry on as normal with their ruthless crusade of vengeance against their parents. Not just their parents, as in the metaphorical sense that humanity was their parent, but also their literal parents in the final 5, who were all hidden amongst the fleet. Ultimately, when the resurrection hub was destroyed and they lost their ability to resurrect, they would become obsessed with attempting to regain this ability, which for some reason the Cylons had lost the ability to produce new resurrection technology, thanks to the fact that it was only created originally by the final 5 and possibly by the earlier Centurions, most of which were no longer around to build new ones, so they needed the originals to make it for them. When this was failing, the last Cavil would eat a bullet, taking his own life rather than accepting the defeat. Without the resurrection, this seemingly brings an end to that line. If there were any of them left, they would have been alone, isolated, and likely would have eventually died, as the only true survivors of the Cylon Empire were the few that went to Earth with the other humans, and the ones that went away on the last known, anyway, Cylon base ship, which was by this point crewed entirely by Centurions, with the exception only of the hybrid, who was not a true, fully organic Cylon anyway. It was somewhere in the middle, and quite frankly was not an independent entity. It needed the ship to survive, and the ship needed it to function, so they were symbiotic. And there we go, the ones. The one. Okay, my brain's going into Babylon 5 now. If you're watching this video, I'm fairly clear that you were a Battlestar Galactica fan. If you're not, I highly recommend you go and watch this show. It was space opera. It was of the finest caliber writing of any science fiction, not just science fiction, just of any show that's ever been on television. If you don't like sci-fi, it doesn't matter. Give it a watch. I promise you it's worth it. It is a fantastic series. Absolutely brilliant. Even the films that spun off from it are good. The Plan, not so much, but the other ones, Razor and the original miniseries, they are fantastic. And the show never skips a beat. It just keeps on ticking. Every episode, building on the lore, the character development, everything. The humans, the Cylons, everyone is shown as both bad and good. No one is absolutely right. There is no black and white in this universe. It is stunningly well made. Truly stunningly well made. And Dean Stockwell, of course, always brings charisma and gravitas to whatever he's in, and he makes the Wands a compelling villain. With all that said, again, please like, share, subscribe, comment down below, tell me what you think. Were the Wands your favourite number? Did you like one of the other model numbers? And also, again, check out Relentless Rebels if you like anything they have. Promo code Nerd20. And if you made it all the way to the end of the video, thank you for watching, and bye bye.